May I have your attention, please?
We are controlling transmission. There is nothing wrong.
The Horror Chronicles.
Whether it's a ghost, spirit, or entity, they all feed on it. That's the whispering, the footsteps, the feeling of another presence.
You won't have a chance to change your minds later, because there'll be no way to get out.
We have such sights to show you.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. Nope. What's blood for? If not for shedding.
Have you checked the children?
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Boogeyman's real.
That is better.
They're coming to get you.
They're here.
Boy.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Horror Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me, as always, our co-host, my cohort, the co-founder. He's a little weird, but like a benign tumor, he'll grow on you.
I'm a lot weird. I'm JT. What's
JT's
going on,
in the
everybody?
house. And tonight, we got a special guest.
Ooh, special.
Yeah, she's kind of hot. Don't tell my wife about it. Oh, wait, it is my wife. So tonight, my wife, Krista's on here with us. Say hello, Lee.
Hello, everybody. Super excited to finally be on the podcast. I hope everyone's ready to get horror freaky with me.
All right.
Now you guys can see what I do.
Yeah.
You like freaky.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. But anyway, tonight I think we're going to do a kind of a part 2 of our own personal stories and just kind of talk about the paranormal more a little bit. I got some stuff I want to ask JT and my wife, Krista. And we're just going to roll with it, guys. I mean, I don't really have any specific plan on it. We're just going to flow with it.
I'm good with it. We've all got some stories to tell.
Yeah, and like we told a few on the last episode, but we're going to get into some other stuff as far as paranormal goes too, and some personal stories my wife has, some more stuff that JT has to talk about, But first, I want to ask you, what is your outlook on like paranormal? Like, let's talk about, let's say, ghosts. What's your outlook? What do you think a ghost is, so to speak?
Well, I think there's a couple different types of hauntings per se. I mean, a ghost is energy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you're seeing a vision or a playback from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they call that a residual
haunting. Yeah.
You are catching a glimpse of something that happened a long time ago, and for some reason it has gotten stuck in a loop in a specific place.
Like it didn't go to the light.
Or yeah, exactly. Or it could even happen to a specific person. I have heard stories where it's not really the place that's haunted; it's the person that's haunted.
Yeah.
And these visions, I guess, is what you can say. You're getting a glimpse of something tragic that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the like the energy thing. I think that like they say that if someone dies like quickly, instantly, and like it's a horrible death or a painful death or something, the more energy that's there, the more powerful that's going to be. So like that's why people who usually pass on from natural causes or something, peacefully in their sleep, they may show up, but it's not like someone who was murdered and
Yeah, and then that's kind of weird too, because people that die in their sleep, you don't really hear ghost stories about, I walked in the bedroom and there's some weird dude laying
sleeping next to me.
I have heard stories about people waking up and there being somebody laying next to them.
Yeah.
I've heard some stories where people actually feel the bed move. Like you can feel the bed sink.
I've had that
like somebody sat on the edge of the bed.
Myself, that's happened to me. I remember one time too.
That's
actually,
creepy.
I talked about in the last episode. That I get feelings and stuff, and I've seen things, but like,
do I need to sing that again?
Yeah.
No.
No, I think that I remember one specific time actually when I was living with my wife was then my girlfriend. I was living with her and her parents. And I remember, I don't know what time it was. I was asleep. And she would try to sneak into my room. Right. And she opened the door and she's like, Ryan, you know. And all I did, I lifted up my head and I was like, why is the bed moving? Because to me, it literally felt like the bed was just not like violently shaking, but I could feel it vibrating. Like it literally felt like there was I would assume an earthquake would feel.
That was just your body trembling.
He was getting excited.
There. You were so excited.
Oh, Jesus. But no, what's happened to me multiple times, you know? And that's happened quite a few times to me where I've woken up to feeling the bed like moving, like literally vibrating, like it's crazy. I don't know.
They have those beds you can put quarters on.
Just like that. Just like that, without having. I don't have to have a vibrator for that.
Oh,
we don't have a vibrator in our house. But no, anyway, like really, we've talked about it last time. You know, we got a huge fascination with the paranormal stuff, and I love getting into that stuff, and I watch it all the time. You can ask my wife; she hates. I always watch every freaking TV show that comes on, and she hates. I watch Ghost Adventures all the time. Yeah, and people hate that.
I can't take them seriously anymore. I just can't. Yeah. I can't. You know, I love them to death. I'm not one to judge, but I just can't take them seriously anymore.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you on that.
I just can't.
But you know,
it's cool what he's doing.
Yeah, I get it, but you're not going to get touched every time you walk into a building in a different state.
And you know, I understand.
Right. I mean, unless you're like a legit like medium at heart, or you know, you just have that sixth sense. I just don't believe that you're just going to walk in somewhere for investigatory purposes and then just, I got touched.
Did she just invent a new word?
Holy shit, investigatory?
Does it work? I'm pretty sure
it is a word.
If it's not in the Webster, I'm pretty sure everyone got the gist.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we say that. And
she's going to make us look dumb.
I make fun of them sometimes, you know, on that show. But to be honest with you, I was thinking about it the other day when I was watching them. I'm like, you know, I like the dude has something that's interesting because he's super popular. That show is super popular, but like
he was more popular when his muscles were double the size.
Yeah, well, that's what steroids do to you.
Well,
but anyway, what I was gonna say is like I kind of understand where he's coming from. And for a lot of people to sit around saying that, most of it's bullshit, which, come on, I mean, yeah, some of it's bullshit, but who knows what someone feels when they walk into a building?
Well, you know what I mean? It's funny because I just was watching something the other day, and they were talking about how some people can sense things more than other people. Mm-hmm. They're more perceptive to it. Mm-hmm. And as these people were talking, actually, I'm sorry, it was a podcast I was listening to. It was one of Jim Harold's podcasts. Mm. And they were talking about how some people can be sensitive to these paranormal events. And they actually believe that everybody is sensitive to these events. It's just some people kind of ignore it.
Push it to the side, 100%. Yeah. I agree with that 100%.
Well, because a lot more people are more apt to want to believe that it was just a legit cold chill as opposed to, you know, energy, you know, as in the form of a ghost or, you know, anything like that. Like you're talking to someone in a room with a casual conversation, all of a sudden, for no reason whatsoever, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you just get this really eerie feeling. And then usually right after that, you have to take a pee. Well, people usually will just say, oh, well, I just got to take a pee. So let's go take a pee and we're done with that. And they have no idea that like something just walked by them or brushed past them or blew in their ear or whatever. Yeah. It's so much easier to believe I would have never
coordinated heroin standing up back and neck and taking a pee.
Well, oh my gosh! Well, I mean, that's what happens. Like and it hits you. You're at a party. You're hanging out with people. Your belly's full. You've been drinking. You know, whatever, and it hits you. I'm not the type that's just be like, oh, I gotta go pee. Like stuff happens. I get goosebumps, or I start doing my little pee dance, and I'm like, excuse me. I mean, but it's easier. I just use that as an example. People are a lot more apt to believe in, you know, scientific, you know, what explanation as opposed to, you know, just want to grab like pitchforks and daggers and, you know, green light and shit like that.
Right.
They don't.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I wish that would be one of my huge, like, once in life would be able to do what, like, Zach Baggins and all of them do, travel and see all the, all the cool places that were super old and probably haunted, and like, just, and be able, I'm not necessarily worried about money, but you got to make a living. We got 2 kids, we got to take care of.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you got to do that.
Yeah.
This podcast is kind of something like that for me, because I also like to talk to people,
Right.
It's weird because, like, even I'll tell my wife, we'll be driving down the road and we'll see somebody walking on the road or someone at a store we're at or something. I'm like, dude, I really like to talk to that dude. I bet he or she is.
Yeah, we're the
really
complete opposite. I'm all like stranger danger.
You just want to knock on their door and be like,
and Ryan,
excuse me, sir. Can I take some time to talk to you about the paranormal?
Yeah, and maybe it's not even about the paranormal. There's so many other things that
that's what Ryan. We'll be driving down the road and we'll see somebody, the trench coat and the backpack and whatever, walking across the overpass.
Trench coat. I think they're a flasher.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's been instilled in me since I was a little girl, because I am a girl. My dad was always like, never pick up a hitchhiker. My dad picked up hitchhikers with me in the vehicle, but to me, never pick up a hitchhiker. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, see,
so I've got it in my brain where it's like stranger danger, red flag, don't do it. And then Ryan's like, man, I bet that guy's I bet he's got a cool story. I bet he'd be fun to talk to. I wonder what he's got. And I'm just like, no, stranger danger.
Well,
man, that's all up into the vanishing hitchhiker stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want no part of freaking Cabin Fever or The Hills Have Eyes. I'd rather not.
And I'm in all that.
I'd rather not.
Yeah. I'm ready for whatever.
I don't want to go looking for it. I want to go home and get in the bath and put my kids to sleep and have a good night.
I'm ready for whatever. See, I'll have a good night on it. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. But like, no, as far back to the paranormal stuff, I just, it's huge to me because there's that, like we talked about many a times. Mm-hmm. It's just that there's something else out there. Reality isn't what you think it is. You know what I mean? It's,
it's a fascination for me by far. I've been fascinated by it since I was a little kid. And, you talk about all these shows and stuff on TV. When I was younger, there was like a couple shows that would pop up a couple times a year. And those, it was like, oh my God, I can't wait to see that, know, and you would like sit in front of the TV for hours waiting for that show to come on, because you couldn't record stuff back then. I grew up in the 70s, okay? But now you're so bombarded by it, people are almost getting desensitized to it.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of things in life, period. But yeah, staying on this, I understand that 100%. I think that like we said before, TAPS, the ghost hunters had a lot to do with that, and
they had a fantastic show when they first started.
And I've looked into the stuff, and of course, all the original members, were like, okay, we're not doing what we were, so they quit doing the show. But I still listen to Jason Hawes. He has a podcast called, it's actually a radio show, but they put it out as a podcast called Beyond Reality Radio, and it's pretty good. Those guys, I watched those every time they came on. I had to watch the new one coming out. And like you said, they put that out there and they showed that a lot of people were interested in it, you know? Oh, yeah. And now you got so many, like I said, bombarding you with stuff that's kind of bullshit.
It started a craze is what it did. I mean,
just like Halloween did with slasher films,
Absolutely.
But it also puts some stuff out there. Some of the shit they catch is cool. You know what I mean? The thing about it, I've heard people talk about it, like, let's just put it out there for the Ghost Adventures with Zach Baggins. I've heard people talking about it, like making fun of it and all this other stuff and saying, well, he never really catches too much of anything, but that's the point. He acts,
you're not going to see stuff every time.
He puts on a show all the time, but really, they only catch stuff every now and again, which is the way it is supposed to be.
Right.
When you're putting on a show on TV, you got to make it look like it's so. They've got
deadlines and they've got this and that.
All he can do is say, "Oh, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that," because they're not catching that much. Right. But when they do catch something, they show it. So, I mean, I see where it's coming from. where people coming from on it, because he puts on, like, I even told my wife, I'm like, you don't get possessed every time you walk into a place.
No.
Right.
Like, and but
hey, let's shove Aaron into the story.
Oh my gosh, I know. I feel so bad for Aaron. Like, why does he always have to be in the deepest dark room of the nastiest, most grotesque basement where somebody got slasher killed and the killer's haunting it, and they've already got a voice recording down there, and the door's already slammed in that room, but you're the one that's going to be sitting down there. We'll see you later. Like, what? Why do they always do that to him? I don't get it.
I give him props, though. He does it.
He does too. He never wants to, but he does. Like, oh my God, he's got to have nightmares. He's got to have nightmares.
But
and they've all of them have spoken about when they took a break there for a little while, because they both left, all three of them left. I don't even remember what place they were investigating, but when they left, they even took a break from a show for a little while because they all brought something to their home with them, which is one of my biggest fears. Like, I'll go and want to check you out or whatever, but I'm not wanting to like step in your soul and bring it back home with me and you kick it in my chest of drawers. Like, I'm not okay with that. I don't, and that's one of my biggest fears, is something ever, me being a curious George and going out there and bringing something home to my family. Yeah,
that happened whenever I took the Alton Haunted Tour, and our tour guide that night was this guy, Luke Naliborski, and I've talked about him before. He's put out a couple books. Great guy. I talked to him for a long time, and after the tour was over, he invited my wife and I back to the bookstore, because that's kind of where the tour takes off from. They have a bookstore. It's called the Haunted and Happenings Bookstore in Alton, or History and Hauntings Bookstore. Sorry. We went back and talked to him, and that was one thing that I talked to him about. I said, I've heard that you can actually go to these haunted places and stuff can follow you home. And he was like, yes, absolutely. He said, it hasn't happened to me. He said, but I have talked to some people where they feel like something followed them home.
Oh, yeah. Well, and first of all, if you think something does follow you home, the best thing to do is if you're that worried about it, don't even try.
Yeah.
Because you have to be strong-willed.
Oh, yeah.
And like for me, I got a will out the motherfucking world. I got a really strong will. And like, if something does follow you home, all you gotta do is let them know it's your home.
Yeah.
And don't back down. I mean, it's
and you're
easy.
Not welcome here.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
But stuff does follow you. And speaking of ghost adventures, there's two people that they did some shows with that did die. And a lot of people think they said the guy killed, it was a murder-suicide. But if you watch the episodes with those people on it, I mean, they clearly talked about how something followed them and it's been with them and it was making them do things, And I mean, you can brush it off as that or whatever, but I mean, stuff can't follow you. You can't be weak. That's the way I look at it,
Yeah.
If you're weak, anything can happen to you in reality or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just the way the world is,
I'm gonna rewind a little bit here, back to where we were talking about the feelings and stuff. Mm-hmm. One of the oddest times that I ever had, I haven't been to a lot of haunted places, but I've been to a few. Like I said, I've been fascinated by it for years. But one of the oddest feelings I ever had was when we spent the night at the Lemp Mansion. I didn't see any ghosts there, but the whole time I was there, you just had this weird feeling like, I don't know if it was like somebody was watching me the whole time or following me around or whatever. You just
never felt alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It kind of felt weird. It was just, I don't know, very dark.
Yeah. I've had that feeling quite a few times. I mean, we talked about that before when I told you about that house that I wouldn't go into, and usually I'm not really scared of, I'm not really, to be honest with you, I'm really not scared of anything, but like, I know that if I get a feeling about something enough to where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't, then I'm not going to, it's just common sense. But it kind of reminds me of one time me and my wife, of another friend of ours, and our girl Breezy, who's going to be on the show, as we said before. we were out one Halloween night and we went to this old, it used to be like a,
yep, I remember this. Oh,
like a insane asylum type place, but but it wasn't a insane asylum.
I was against it from the drive.
And then,
just so we're clear,
there used to be an abortion clinic, like all this stuff, right? All this evil crap.
All this,
you know,
just
you think
evil,
of.
just evil. And
But
it was all
anyway.
stories. There was nothing documented. It was just what we had heard. But it, in fact, did turn out to be true later, once
But
they demolished the building.
Anyway, so we pull up, and it's up on this hill, very top of this hill, and you got to pull up in the drive. It's all boarded up, old rock. The building's made out of old rock, you know. And me and Bree get out, and we're like, hey, we're going to go inside. You guys come in. They're like, no, wait. They sit in the car, of course. My wife and Krista sit in the car. And so we go down there, and we break in the bottom down there. There's like a board open. And there's like, we get in there, dude, and there's still like old gurneys, all kinds of shit in there. Cool shit. But anyway, we come out like 10, 15 minutes later, we come out. And we're like, we're going to fuck with them. So we take off running up the backside of this building, and they see us running towards the car. And we're like, start the car, go, go. What do? They fucking lock us out.
I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it. And I wasn't either. You crazy people went in there, and if something's chasing your ass out of there, you deserve a bite.
Locked us out of the fucking car. I'm like, oh, I see what your fucking loyalty's like.
I told you not to go. I told you not to go from the driveway.
I'm telling you.
I was not. Nope.
So at least now I know who to trust.
Oh, I got you now, babe. I got you now. But then you was testing me. I failed.
You failed miserably.
I failed.
Miserably.
I was not ready. It was too soon.
Hell, my wife would have started the car and drove off.
Oh man, but yeah, you know, I've felt some stuff that's pretty dark, you know, and you know, I can't remember if I talked about this before. I don't think I have, but like my brother CJ, he's had some stuff happen to him, you know, and like it's affected him a lot, you know, like he won't watch The Exorcist, because of this stuff, you know.
There's a lot of people won't.
Well,
my wife won't watch it.
He had a feeling like he was sleeping on the couch one night, and he felt, you know, you're talking about someone feeling somebody sit on the bed or whatever. Well, he felt this pressure all over his entire body.
And he said he couldn't breathe.
He couldn't hardly breathe. Scream. He couldn't make a single word.
And he was wide awake.
And he was like, it made it to the point where it made him like want to cry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like he felt the evilness. He felt it, and it happened to him twice. And the second time it happened to him, his girlfriend was there awake when it happened, trying to help him, and she couldn't until he came out of it. But speaking about that, like I remember, this is where it gets crazy. I don't know if this was a dream or what was going on, but I remember sleeping or whatever, so I thought it was a dream at the time. I was laying in bed, and I opened my eyes up, and I had a small light on in my room, you know. So there's a little bit of light showing, kind of like a sense. I don't know if you guys know a Sensi light, you know, kind of like that, like a nightlight type deal. And so there's a little bit of light, and I was laying there, but as soon as I opened my eyes, I was staring at the wall. So I was laying on my side, staring at the wall, but I felt this like, as soon as I opened my eyes up, I felt what evil is. I swear on everything, I felt like there was this, like a devil, Satan, whatever you want to call evil, was there. Bad. And I remember just panicking and like laying there, not wanting to look away from the wall, and just feeling this presence like coming over me. And just coming over me, getting closer and closer and closer. And then I come out of it, and my mom's holding me, and I'm drenched from head to toe, like drenched in sweat. And she was like shaking me, crying, like my dad was standing there, like trying to wake me up. And
was the hair standing up on the back of your neck?
And I had to pee.
Did you have to pee? Okay, I didn't know if that was coming or not.
No, but like my mom was like crying, shaking me, and she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, and she said that I was breathing, like I wasn't even breathing. I was like like doing that.
You were gasping
like,
for air.
Not even breathing though. Like when I get full gas, just kind of. And she woke me up finally, and that all happened kind of like the last episode we did. I was telling you about that neighbor.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
That happened after that too. Remember, and I got sick.
Right.
Dude, I'm telling you, there was something going on. There was a battle going on there, dude. And I don't know what the whole situation was. Like I said, I'm not very religious anymore. I believe in higher power or something out there. Don't know what it is. I believe in good and evil. I really do. I believe in karma. I'm a high believer in karma, whatever that is. But
it's bit me in the ass a few times.
Yeah.
I don't want to meet her. People don't say nice things.
I'm a huge believer. You can ask my wife. I believe in karma on everything, man. I don't screw nobody over. We were talking about
maybe one of these days I'll meet your wife.
Yeah.
But it might be good. She might be nice.
But we were eating at a restaurant and they're like, "Did you ever spit in somebody's food or get in somebody's food, did you?" And I'm like, "Hell no. I would never be able to eat in a restaurant again if I if I did something like that, dude. Because I would be like, I would know something's gonna be kicking me in my ass. You know what I'm saying?"
Oh yeah.
But yeah, back to this. I just something was going on there. I don't know what it was, man, but for a while there, for a few months, it was hardcore. And I mean, I remember what happened. I started going to church all on my own. I woke up one summer morning on a Sunday. It was summertime and have school and stuff. I woke up at like 6:30 in the morning, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to church. So I went to church by myself. I'm the one that got my whole family to go to church. They went to church after that for a while, but anyway, I started going to church. So then I started going to every single church just to see what they're all about. You know what I mean? And cool little story. I don't know if it's true or not. I heard this from some people, from older folks in different churches I've talked to. There's like, in the town that we lived in, there's like 6 or 7 churches in a town of like 500 people, if that.
And 2 bars.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, what I heard about this is that there was a lot of, we kind of talked about witchcraft and stuff like that. There was a lot of satanic stuff or whatever stuff going on in this town a long time ago or whatever. So they brought all these church or religious groups together to try to, get rid of it.
Right.
So they had to stay here, to be able to keep the stuff going. And I mean, all these buildings and these little businesses and this other crap have come and gone, but all these churches are still here. Even if there's only like 2 or 3 people going to these damn churches. Wow. It seems like they're still here. Whether or not it's true, I don't know. Yeah. But, it's kind of a cool story. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, I remember when I was a kid, and because I always went to Newburgh ever since first grade. I mean, so from 6 years old to graduation. And I can't honestly remember if you guys were here yet or not, but I remember that one of the old houses right in the middle of town, right there on Main Street, that there was this big, huge stink brought up through the town, and people were actually arrested because this was an old abandoned house, and the police, I guess some of the neighbors or whatever had been calling the police because of loud music and, candles burning up in the top of the house, like for like odd hours of the night and stuff. And it was older people that lived around there. They were scared that like somebody left the candle burning, right. They don't know why there's crazy music at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So the police ended up getting called, and they were all like, crack of dawn, like early morning, like between 3 and 4, whatever. And the police got called one night, and they finally were like, okay, we're going to go check it out. We've had more than a couple phone calls, time to go do our job, so to speak. Right. And they showed up there, and nobody came to the front door, so they just let themselves in. They had probable cause, whatever that was. But they busted in the door. They climbed the stairs to the top of the house. And they arrested these people that were in black robes, and they had each other's blood written in, pentagrams on their body. And they had, filleted cats and chickens and candles and salts. And it was just a ridiculous amount. It was a big deal because that stuff didn't happen in the town like that. And it was a big deal. And then shortly after that, my cousin, actually, he's an older cousin. He's got about maybe 3 or 4 years on me. He is a diehard country boy. I mean, just cruising the back roads and, just he lives for the country. And he was on a back road, a couple hours, I guess, before dusk. And he came back and he came back to where all of us were, because we always hung out in the streets in Newburgh. Mm-hmm. We were always just hanging out down there by the tracks. And he came by one day and stopped in there with us. And he stopped and told us that he was out on some back road, down P or T highway, whichever. And then all of a sudden he came around a corner and there was just this person, head down, black robed from head to toe, just walking down the street.
No, it was Mill Creek.
It was Mill Creek. Okay.
And there was all kinds of people out there.
Okay. See,
and
I don't even remember. I just remember it was a big deal.
These people had like fires up and down the road, and they were just standing around, like at these fires doing whatever they're doing. So they come back up in town and they seen us. They, hey, you guys want to go down here? There's like some kind of weird satanic people or something down here. So like, whatever. Back, we fought all the time back then. We're like, fuck, let's go kick their ass. So we went down there and they were all gone. You still see the fires on the side of the road, but they were all gone.
But all the people were.
And the other thing you're talking about I was here.
Were you here?
Yeah, it was around Halloween actually when it happened, and it was in this apartment. There's a building down there that has like apartments up top, and there's the one apartment at the very bottom, but it's like all at the end of it, so it's as long as the entire apartment complex.
Okay.
And it was right when they busted him. It was like the night before Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being downtown and seeing like all the cops there, and we walked down there and we were talking to one of the cops the local cops that we knew. And they said there were some people in there sacrificing cats and stuff, and they had them hanging from the roof, and was telling us all about it. But yeah,
sick bastards.
Yeah. I remember that. It was pretty crazy. And I can't remember how many people they arrested that night, but I knew a few of them actually. I can't remember the names
that
were in there. Yeah, I can't remember 100% who they were, but I knew that I knew. I'm like, wow, I can't believe that person was in there. Or I was like, yeah, of course that person was in there. I mean, either way, yeah, I mean, like talking about energy, places hold energy, they say like limestone is really, really good about holding in that energy of stuff, and water supposedly. See, I've heard varying things. I've heard that water either like on Night of the Demons,
right?
They couldn't pass the stream,
right? The demons couldn't go.
But then I've heard that it also flows. It's weird. Of course, everybody's got their own look. That's my whole thing with the paranormal stuff. It's almost like we talked about before. It's a personal thing.
Right, because everyone's views are different. Because with me, like when I think of water, and if you want to like intermingle water and the paranormal, I mean, as far as me personally, I look at water as like a cleansing agent, like a purification type. Like you get baptized in water, you wash your sins away. If you want to go that route with it, I never, outside of, some crazy creature that hasn't been discovered yet that just looks ridiculous and scary. Because think about the angelfish at the bottom of the ocean, mm-hmm. the depths of the ocean in pure blackness. And then they just look horrifying and they have a little light that comes on and they're just horror mouth wide open. And then when the prey gets close, bing. And then you never know really, but I don't think of water as being able to carry like evil.
Didn't we talk about, I can't remember if we talked about this on a podcast or if it was just me and you bullshitting one day. But
we never bullshit.
But about being born and dying and why you see a light when you die. Well, people say light. There's a light that you see, right?
Right.
Like
wait a minute, where are you going with this?
Check this out, right? This is cool. I'm sure people have heard it. Yeah, check it out. That's what I'm saying. I've heard this multiple times.
Like you go out the same way you come in?
Listen. They say that when you die and you see that light, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. You're coming through.
And they tell you to go towards the light.
Go towards the light, right? They say go towards the light. Well, when you come towards the light, that's you being born. You got that bright light in your face. They're, it's you
like
being
born again, like or reborn
well, no, that's
into
just
the hands of
into your new thing. And
Yeah.
the reason why you cry so much when you're a baby is because you're remembering your past life.
it's just like hitting you like
But then you start to forget over time, and you become this new person.
Well, and now now you're getting into reincarnation.
Yes, which I see, man. I'm all over the place on everything because I do believe in reincarnation. Because I know for a fact that I'm an old soul. I know for a fact I am.
Yeah, me too.
It sounds kind of weird, but like
bullshit. I'm older than you.
No, you just old.
He's an old soul. I'm an old fart.
I mean, if you don't believe in reincarnation, even in the slightest sense, then how can you explain history legit over and over and over and over and over again, repeating itself?
Well, that's human nature.
I mean,
that's just human nature.
But and I understand like human nature, but it's not human nature for, and it doesn't have to be something good. I mean, think of something very tragic, very traumatic, very life-changing happening over. No, that's that people love that. That's funded. That's not a good example.
No.
That's funded. No, it's just that's just never ending. That's not history repeating itself. That's just never shutting down. They just one stops and they throw it in another country. I mean, it's just that's what that is. But reincarnation to me is like it in a sense is history repeating itself. I mean, I have had dreams where I've been some like frilly maiden in my
slut.
Yeah, well, no, not necessarily. I'm not in my dream anyway. My dream didn't do all that. My dream didn't show me all that.
Oh, wait, never mind. That was last Saturday.
But I know who I am today, so I'm sure I had a good time. Well, no, but like...
Hey, I know. I saw you as a nun in the past.
I did. Yeah, Ryan loves those contacts out of character. They're so dry, though. Those contacts were so dry and heavy. Okay, we're
get back to where you're going.
I was quit.
Get back on the train.
Quit putting me back in my element, and then stop it. And
somebody's gonna get throat punched here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Well, no. Anyway, like I've had dreams where I've been like this. I mean, the only way that I can really describe it is like a frilly maiden, where the big long dress and the cloth dress and the long super hair and the bonnet on my head, and I'm walking through a pasture with this basket with bread or whatever was in it, and there's just like a battle going on around me, and I'm scared. I know people that I'm running past to get away from it, but I really have no idea who they are. I couldn't tell you what their name was. I just knew that I knew them, and I felt bad for them because they're fighting and they're maybe dying, and I'm trying to get away from it. Like I've had dreams like that. I've had dreams where I was like an Indian, and I come from Indian heritage. I'm Cherokee and
Native American.
Native American. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Indian. Feather, not the dot. If that's not politically correct, I'm trying to make a distinction.
Holy shit! You just got rid of half our fan base.
No.
Man.
Oh, okay.
Man.
Don't worry me. That scared me.
Yeah.
No,
all 8 people.
We'll delete all that.
Just delete feather, not the dog. We'll be all right.
Oh. Now we gotta delete it again.
Oh.
Now we gotta delete it again.
No.
Shut your pie hole.
Shut up. Quit. Don't give me a complex. Anyway,
okay, let's try to be.
Something.
You guys are never going to hear this.
No, there has to be something. There has to be something out there. I mean, is your brain really that vivid? I mean, is your imagination really running that rampant when you see
I had a dream I got shot by a farmer and turned into a snake. What the hell does that mean?
I'm a snake.
That must have been in your rocker days.
Yeah. Well, see, I believe that there is something out there, but I also believe that the human brain is so...
Well, there's so much we
don't know about it, and there's so much you can do that it's hard to be able to tell. You know what I mean? I just like she was talking about having dreams of past lives. I strongly believe that I had to have been in a war in a past time in my life. Because I have my entire life since I was a kid, when I was like, I really wanted to be in the military from the time I was like 9 years old. And I almost went, and I kind of kicked myself in the ass for not going because I had that regret.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why I got into cage fighting, because it fed that gave me that fuel.
That
you know what I
urge to
mean?
fight.
But I had that urge. I had that urge to prepare for everything. I had that urge to know how to defend myself and teach my kids how to defend themselves. I love shooting, but I feel like I was born in the wrong era. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I should have been born in a different era of time. And that's how I felt my whole life.
There's a lot of people feel that way.
You know, and I think that has a lot to do with that past life stuff. And who knows, man? Like I was saying with the whole rebirth thing. Like maybe that's still part of your DNA. Your past life is still in there. You know what I mean? And
well, look at some of the odd, and there's a lot of them popping up just here recently. It's kind of funny that we're talking about this because I've seen a lot of photos popping up here recently where people will be in like a art museum or whatever, and there'll be an old picture from 200 or 300 years ago, and the person's standing there by the picture, and they look identical to the person.
Yeah, dude, I've seen. I think you can look online. There's pictures of people in time. Even actresses and stuff.
Yeah.
That's like, holy shit.
Yeah, I remember Nicolas Cage was one of them.
Oh,
he looked
dude.
like some sort of soldier or whatever.
Yeah, it's I've seen that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I have that. I actually have that a lot. I don't know if you want to call it like deja vu or whatever, but that happens to me a lot. Like I'll just be doing my normal run-of-the-mill thing. Like say I'm, picking up the living room after the kids and their toys are everywhere and I'm like trying to wipe stuff down. Like I'll just have that 5 or 6 second instance of like, oh man, like I've seen these toys laid on this table, like in this exact manner, like
that happens
before.
To me all the time.
And I'm like, okay, moving on, and I pick everything up and I wipe it down and I go, and then
and you always kind of pause.
Yeah. Well, and then it'll just be the littlest stuff. Like I'll be unloading groceries and I never ever buy the exact same thing.
Right.
And I never bag everything the exact same way. But I'll be unloading my groceries and I'll reach in and I'll just see a bag of groceries with stuff in it and bags hanging on my arm and the leaves a certain way behind my Jeep in my driveway, and I'm just like, whoa, that one was strong. Okay, moving on. And then I go on about my business. I see people that look, and this is a small town, but I see people that look absolutely identical to people that I know. And I'll see them from behind and I'll be like, oh, hey. But when they turn sideways and I catch a side view, I'll be like, yeah, no, she would never wear what you're wearing. But you have a twin out there. I'm just to let you know, and I'm friends with her.
Man, now we're getting into doppelgangers.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time.
Dude, people tell me constantly. I hear this at least once a day. You got a twin out there. Oh, hey, aren't you? I'm like, no, it's not me. Are you sure?
Oh, yeah.
You have an identical
Are you sure you're not who you think you are?
You have an identical twin. I hear that at least once a day, dude. Yeah. And I'm not even playing.
You better hope I never
It's funny. I met mine when I was a kid. When I was in grade school. And him and I were in the same school together, but we were in different classes.
Oh, wow.
His name was Chad, and he lived right down the street from me. We lived on the same street and kind of bumped into each other. I mean, we looked identical.
You guys ever go home and fuck with your parents and switch up houses?
It was so, I mean, we looked so similar that we could switch classes and nobody.
That's freaking cool, man.
And I don't know, I've experienced things on my own that make me personally believe that there's something out there. And if you've not ever experienced anything, number one, you're lucky because they're not usually fun. They're
wrong.
No, it's my experiences, my personal experiences, and everyone's different. But my personal experiences, every one of them except for one, made me feel very, very uncomfortable, on edge, uneasy, wanted to remove myself from the situation, remove myself from the entire vicinity.
Are we talking about a relationship here? What's going on?
We can get into that. We got days.
We got time.
No, but there was only one that I had before I even knew what a ghost was, what paranormal was, before I was even of age to watch anything on the TV or, anything like that. But when I was really, really little, my great grandma Feathers, she died before I was born. My sister's 4.5 years older than me. She knew my grandma when she was like 2.5 years old, and then my grandma died. Well, that's on my dad's side of the family, and our grandpa Feathers was always there. He lived to be until he was like 96, 97, something around that. But when I was a little girl, there was one thing that, kids always want a certain thing. Well, my big thing was when I went to bed at night, I always wanted my parents to come in and read me a story. They never did. I grew up and forgot about it. But I always wanted that. And even before I knew how to read, like I'd sit in my bed with the light on with a book and I'd have no idea, and I'd just make up words and tell myself stories and fall asleep. But when I was super young, I couldn't have been more than like 4 or 5 years old. I would have the same dream every single night. And I would be in this like beautiful, we lived in a trailer. So, it was nice, but it was a trailer. And there would be like in my dream, I would be in this beautiful white, like princess room with pink sheets and the cute lamps and just this beautiful, kids' dream princess room. And everything would be white. I would be in my bed. I'd have a little bitty lamp right beside my bed, but the whole room would have already been like projected bright. And then this door to the room would open and my great grandma would float. Not even kidding.
Well, you didn't know at the time, though, was your great grandma.
I had no idea. Yeah, no, it was just this old lady. And she never spoke to me. She never spoke a word. Like never. She would never come in and say hello. She would never come in and, but I just felt super comfortable with this woman. Oh my God, I can't even right now. You guys are killing me. Stop with your sexual innuendos when I'm trying to tell a story. You're getting me all tongue-tied.
Tell your story.
Anyway, I am. Anyway, she would come in and I just felt completely comfortable with her. Like I knew who she was, but I didn't. And she would sit down, she would read me stories, and then she would leave. Like she would never say bye. But she would sit there and she'd read me a story. Like I say, she wouldn't talk to me. She would read me a story and then that was it. And she'd go on. Well, it was my great.
Tell a story though. It
was my great grandma. And
how'd you figure that out?
Well, when my grandma, her daughter, my dad's mom, my grandma came down to visit, and my dad and her were really, really close. And I came out, I had a dream and I didn't know still, but I came out and this lady in my dream, she always, when she would leave the room, she would always go, shh. She'd always put her finger up over her mouth and she'd hush me, but it was like a comforting hush, like, shh, don't tell and I'll be back. That's how I always felt. And I never spoke a word to anybody. Not even kidding.
Whoa,
I never spoke a word to anybody. And then I was always scared that if I told anybody about it, that she'd stop coming. And I loved going to bed at night, waiting for my dream, waiting for this little old lady to come read me my stories. And I finally came up one day and I told my dad, and I was like, Dad, I told him the whole story. Someone's been coming in my dreams to read to me. And he was like, well, okay, what does she look like? My mom and dad are skeptics, 100%. Even though they've had stuff happen to them, they're still like, it's scientific. It can be proven. We're not going to waste our time. It happened. It's done. Move on. I was never that way after that time when I was that little kid. And I told my dad what had happened. And I was little enough for him to like hold me in his arms and me tell him. And he was like, well, what did she look like? And I told him, I said, well, she was old, Dad. She had gray hair. She didn't have any feet. She floated across the floor to me. And she was wearing a blue dress, a dark blue dress, and it had a pink flower on it. And my dad just kind of like snapped back a little bit, looked at me weird. And he said, come here. And he took me to my grandma and he had me tell my grandma, and I didn't want to. Like I told Dad, and I was like, she's probably never going to come back already. Like, I don't want to tell everybody. Like, I don't want to do that. but he made me tell her. And when I told her, like, she just, like, all the color from just left her face. And she just, was like, what? And she went straight to her purse and she pulled out the picture of her mom, my great grandma, that she had in her purse. She carried it with her all the time. And it was the last picture that was taken of her mom. And it was also, it was the last picture she had taken of her mom. And she was wearing that blue dress and she had a pink flower on. That was her Sunday dress. She got buried in that dress with the pink flower. And when my grandma showed me, she died before I was born.
You never saw the picture.
No, I had never. My grandpa Feathers lived down in Mississippi. We always lived in Missouri. I was young enough to where we hadn't even taken, outside of me being like a little baby and not knowing better, we had never gone down there and me actually even stepped foot in my great grandpa Feathers' home. So I had never seen a picture of her. Mom and dad didn't have pictures of her. They never spoke about her. Like, they would always say Grandpa Feathers and your great grandma Feathers, she's not here anymore. You never got to meet her. She was the sweetest lady ever. Like, whatever. That's all that was. And I was like, okay, I never met her. I'm 4, bye. But that happened for an extended period of time after that day of the whole family figuring it out and kind of getting a little spooked. Right. I mean, because it wasn't just me making up stories as a 4-year-old. Like, they all knew. I had never been to Grandpa's. I had never met Grandma. I had no idea. And for me to be able to explain all that just floored them completely. And that was the first experience that I ever had. And that was the first and only one that ever made me feel comfortable. I felt safe with it. Whatever it was, I felt safe with it. It was comforting at night when my parents would say, go to bed, okay, and go to bed and straight to sleep. I wanted her to come read me my stories.
That's cool. So, I mean, even it's a comfortable, feeling, like a loving feeling. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I had no idea. And after that, I was like, my grandma showed me that picture and I said, that's her. Only she has feet. In my dream, she has no feet. She floats across the floor and there's like light coming out from underneath her dress. And she floated to my bed and sat on my bed. And the only thing I got from her was read the story. And then she'd get up and float away, like no kiss on the head, no pat on the head, no hug. Just she'd float away. I'd lay down in bed. I'd watch her leave the door and she'd always turn around and just shh. After I told everyone, she never came back. She never came back after that day, not once. And I waited and waited. And I cried to my dad because I was like, I told. She always told me not to, and I told, and now she's gone.
That is a really cool story. Yeah. Really cool.
That was today's still crazy.
What's up with the feet? That happens a lot in stories where people, will say, you don't see anything from like the knee down, or whatever.
Well, sometimes from what I understand, like
that was the only thing that kind of like made me a little eerie about the situation was the fact that she had no feet. Like, why is she not taking this step after step after step? Like, why is she floating?
I used to, I've had my own paranormal teams and stuff. Like, I've delved into it, but like basically what they say is that they don't have the energy to fully form. So a lot of things, sometimes they do. Sometimes they have full energy, but sometimes they really don't. Yeah. So that's what they can do is what they can do. But like, that's why like normally when you hear about demonic stuff with children, the reason why people see full-fledged children is because a demonic energy has a huge amount of energy. Yeah. So it has that power to do that. And that's what a lot of people misunderstand about stuff. Like, well, how come it be poltergeist and paranormal stuff like that, but ghosts can't really? It's all about energy, Yeah. And you got malevolent spirits, demonic spirits and stuff like that can create that energy to, do stuff. I know you got a story, that you want to tell. If you want to, you don't have to. I mean,
well, this story is kind of, it's about me, but it's more of a family story, kind of a tragedy. So I grew up in St. Louis. When I was a young teenager, we moved to Arnold, which is south of St. Louis. And my sister, who is 6 years older than me, she met her husband when she was in high school. And they got married right out of high school. And he was he was the kind of guy that, I really looked up to him. He, I didn't really have a brother to look up to. Never had a father to look up to, so he kind of, he was that strong, he was a country boy, he just, very good looking guy, very trim, joined the military right out of high school, and that just, he was like my hero, I mean, so they got married right out of high school, moved away, and they were gone for years, and they came back home. Well, unfortunately, as tragic as it is, 10 years ago, he passed away. He got sick and ended up in the hospital and didn't make it. And it was, so that's kind of where the story begins. So my sister, I don't even know how she did it. They've got 2 young kids, and now her husband, the love of her life, has just passed away. And, she pulled herself together, and, the family kind of pulled around her, what little bit of family we've got left, We made the best out of a bad situation. But some interesting things happened right around his death. He had an appointment with a doctor. He had some back surgery and stuff and was going through a lot of pain management. And they had put this, they call it a morphine pump. It's a pump that they put in you. And anyway, so they had this to help control some of his pain. And he had surgery done on his back, and he'd had both his knees operated on. The military really tore him up, But he went to the doctor one day, and he needed to get an MRI done. And they said, okay, well, for us to do this MRI, we're going to have to turn your pain pump off, and we'll give you some medication to get you through that or whatever. So before he went into the doctor's office, he actually called my sister and left a message on her phone, hey, honey, I was just calling to tell you I love you and all this, and very sweet. He was just a very sweet guy, very strong, but very sweet, loved my sister, but would give anything for her, So anyway, goes into the doctor. He ends up having a seizure in the doctor's office. They immediately transfer him to the emergency room, which was right across the street from the doctor's office that he was in. When he got to the hospital, of course, they had called my sister, and she had rushed to the hospital. And by the time she got there, he had already coded, and they brought him back. But when they brought him back, he was now comatose, and he stayed that way for a few days. Anyway, so my sister, in her grief, has to now plan a funeral. And she starts going about it. Well, he was military, so he always wanted to be buried at Jefferson Barracks. So she contacted Jefferson Barracks and explained the situation, what had happened, and who she was. And they said, okay, well, let's go in and try and get this set up. And she said the guy came back to the phone and he was like, ma'am, he was just in here a few weeks ago and set up all this. He's already got his plot paid for and all the arrangements made. And just a few weeks prior to this. So my sister was like, oh my God, and he had no idea, he was a relatively healthy man, what happened to him was very odd. It was just a fluke thing that happened. But so moving on from that, one of her best friends comes over and my sister's like, okay, so we got to get him ready for the funeral. I got to find clothes for him. I want to put him in a suit. I need to find a suit. And her friends are like, well, let me help you. And So she got in the closet in their bedroom and was going through stuff, and she said, "Well, Kim, what about this one?" And she pulls out a brand new suit that he had just bought. Don't know how long he had it, but it hadn't even been opened. It was a brand new suit, still sealed in the plastic. So my sister's like, okay, so, at this time, my wife and I are back and forth from here to St. Louis, several times a week, trying to help her out and trying to keep the house going. And, and I had to work. And it was really kind of weird for me because I had just started my vacation. This happened on a Wednesday. I got the call Thursday. My vacation started Monday. And so I had to run to St. Louis. And so fortunately, I worked for great people and they just allowed me to take some time off. Well, that was my Saturday to work. So I had to come back home that Saturday and take care of the animals and work. And then, and then I was continuing on with my vacation. So after us running back and forth, we were up there, and my brother-in-law was really big into fish. He loved fish, and he had this big fish aquarium. My sister had no idea how to do anything with that. She, and she was like, what am I going to do with this, And I'm like, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Let's get through the funeral and we'll get all this taken care of. The morning of the funeral, we wake up, all the fish are dead in the tank.
What?
All of them.
Wow.
So here I am scrambling before the kids get up to get all the fish out of this tank, get all the water out of it, because I want to get rid of that tank before the kids even get out of bed. So anyway, it just some weird, really strange occurrences.
Yeah.
So after the funeral, which everything fell right into place because thank God he had taken care of everything.
Yeah.
And like I say, he had no idea he was going to die.
Or did he?
I don't know.
That's the thing.
I don't know.
Crazy, man.
So it was, I don't know. It was probably a week or so after the funeral. I had come back home, and my wife kept going back to St. Louis to help my sister. And so I was home by myself one weekend, and I had went to bed because I had to get up for work the next morning. And so I got to kind of explain my house to you a little bit. Whenever you walk in the front door of my house, you're staring at my bedroom door. It's about 5 feet in front of you, 5 or 6 feet maybe in front of you. Mm-hmm. And to the right of that is a staircase along the wall that goes up to the second floor. So if you walk out of my bedroom door and look to your left, immediately you're looking up a set of stairs. So came home that night, went to bed, and during the night I had this dream that my brother-in-law was standing about 3/4 of the way up the steps, and I had walked out of my bedroom and he was standing up there and he was waving at me to come upstairs. Never saying a word. He was just standing there trying to get me to come upstairs. It was vivid enough that it woke me up, mm-hmm. So I woke up and I was like, oh, okay, it was just a dream, just a dream. And I laid there and I laid there staring at the door for a little while. I was like, okay, and then I drifted off back to sleep. But what, no time later, I had the exact same dream again. Him standing there waving me to come up the stairs. Woke me up again. And this time when it woke me up, my feet hit the floor. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And so I stood there staring at the door, like, do I want to go out that door? I'm not really afraid to go out there, but I don't know that I'm ready for the. Yeah. I was an emotional mess. Like I'm telling you, this guy was my hero, mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to bed, and I went back to bed, And I ended up having that same dream a third time that night. And this time when I woke up, I went to the door and I had my hand on the doorknob. And I just could not get myself to open that door. It was like something was pushing against that door and it would not let me open it. Went back to bed, never had the dream again. When I woke up the next morning, though, you bet your ass I went really slow through that door. And when I did, I looked up the stairs and there was nothing on the staircase. Just kind of a weird occurrence that has happened to me. Now, we have a lot of cats in our house.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since that night, now we have several cats that will go about halfway up the staircase and just sit there and meow. For no reason. We have no idea what they're doing. They don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
But it's, occasionally they'll just sit there staring up the staircase, meowing. Don't know what it is. Now, he had been at our house before. Of course, he didn't pass away in our house. He passed away in the hospital. My house, I don't think my house is haunted because my house is a brand new house. Nobody has ever lived in my house.
Yeah.
Now, is there something going on with the property here?
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? But it's a very strange story.
Well, I think it's a cool story, like with the dream 3 times. I think that's just, the circumstances going on at the time, that energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and your grief too. I mean, everyone grieves differently.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said, whenever I talked about it last time, but like whenever my wife's dad passed away, I had a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not a dream is real, like we talked about 4 different dimensions.
Right.
There's different planes of existence.
Right.
That I think the conversation was 100% real.
Yeah.
It was just on a different plane, And then the same thing happened when my friend Ryan died. I woke up in the middle of the night, even woke her up a little bit, and I was like, Ryan was just here. I didn't talk to him, but I felt him.
Wow.
It's like, it would be like me not seeing you.
I remember that night. He woke both of us up out of a dead sleep and said, babe, Ryan was just here. And I'm like, what? And when he told me that, no joke. Like, our friend Ryan, he was always into like Carhartt and Nike. But the one thing I always remembered about Ryan was his love for cologne. He was always a good smelling kid, a good smelling man. Like, that was this, you could always smell. And when Ryan told me that, I was like, oh, okay, I'm half asleep. I didn't feel anything myself. So I'm like turning back over in bed, getting tucked in or whatever. And I can feel him in the bed and he's breathing hard, whatever, he's just, something just happened in him internally. Like, and I can feel that because I'm his wife. But with me, I'm trying to go back to bed and all I smelled was like Ryan. Not my Ryan, but Ryan. And I'm just like laying there like, oh my God. And I'm moving my head around to see if it's like going away or if it's like coming from my pillow or if it, I don't even know. I think I might have been sleeping in one of your hoodies because I remember like sniffing my sleeve thinking it was something, and it only lasted for a little bit. And then even the both of us, I know we weren't talking about anything, but we both were laying there awake, like trying to sort out what had just happened to the both of us. Like, he felt him, I smelled him.
We had just talked about that in the last episode of this, where I had told you about my mom's best friend. When she passed away, shortly after she passed away, we started smelling her perfume in our house.
Yeah, man, and I'm not a bullshitter type person. I'm not going to make up a story because I 100%, like, when I felt it, it was like, basically, it's like me not looking at you, not speaking to you at all, and then me being somewhere, and then boom, I just know you're right behind me, you're right there, and it's you. I know it's you. It's not something. It's not like it's something behind me. It's you behind me.
Right.
That's exactly what I felt. Exactly what I felt. It was so weird.
Yeah.
Because
now, speaking of not being a bullshitter, and this is something that happened to me, that both of my parents, it happened in their home. I was home alone when it happened. Both of my parents, well, my dad, God rest him, but my mom still to this day does not believe what happened. Like, I mean, I got grounded. She like threatened me with spankings. Like, I literally had to like stop talking about it because it made my mom very angry. And I was just like, okay, well, it happened. Let's pray it doesn't happen again. But it was a bad day to begin with because this happened on 9/11.
Oh.
Exactly. And I never in my wildest dreams, like, that was a bad day. And we were like in 7th and 8th grade, somewhere around there, pretty young. And I remember that happening, and Ryan and I were legit cool enough in school with our teachers and the librarians, the principals, stuff like that. When that happened, school officials pulled both of us out of our different classrooms to let us go into the library to watch on the TVs what was happening to our country in 8th grade. Okay. And we stayed in the library, and everyone kind of festered on that for the day. It was talked about or whatever. I went home, got off the bus, went inside, turned on the TV. It was all over the news. I was a teenage girl. I had the phone on my ear, glued, talking to whoever would answer. If someone had to go, I wanted to call someone else. I was home by myself. It was daylight. It was nice September day. And I was just in my parents' house. Well, I'm sitting on the couch upstairs and I'm watching the TV, talking on the phone, whatever. And I'm on the phone with my friend, and there, all of a sudden, I hear something rolling down the hallway. Because, like, the hallway would be behind me to my right. And that's where all of our bedrooms were and the bathroom. And I'm sitting there on the couch, talking on the phone, watching the mess on TV. And I hear something rolling. And I'm like, what is that? So I don't even think about it. And I heard it, and then I didn't hear it anymore. And I'm like, okay. So I go back to jabbering. And then I hear it rolling again, only this time it's rolling harder and faster. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm sitting on the couch with the phone to my ear, and I'm looking to my right, expecting something to roll out of the hall. Well, something, in fact, did roll out of the hall. It was this red rubber dollar store, $2 or $3, rubber red ball, which, mind you, I had spent weeks looking for. Because one day it just poof was gone. Yeah, Mom, where's the red ball? I don't know. Okay, well, we're not going to ask you again. Dad, have you seen the red ball? My sister, what red ball? No, and nobody cared. And I don't even know why I really cared. But I just knew that, it didn't get popped. The dogs didn't eat it. Right. It's not in the yard. It's just poof. Yeah. It's gone. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Literally, it was gone long enough that I had completely forgotten about it except for that day. And it rolled out of the hallway. All of the doors were always shut. Me, my mom, my dad, and my sister. When we left out in the mornings, we always shut our bedroom doors behind us. Don't know why. It was just a family thing. On my bathroom, the bathroom right there was not very, very big at all. No way for that ball to be hanging out in the bathroom and me not know. Yeah. And that ball comes and it rolls from the hallway, and then you come around the hallway, and then it opens up into the living room. The living room opens up to your left, but you can go straight down the stairs. Connected to the wall is the stairs into the basement. Right. And they're open. It's just a staircase with railings there. And that ball came through and it stopped. It came through around that corner with me sitting on the couch, full-fledged roll, like someone kicked it. And then it just stops. Not on a board or anything. Right. There was nothing there. It just gets to the very top step and it stops. And I'm like, okay. All right. Still on the phone, still jabbering, staring at the ball, not maybe 6 or 7 feet away from me. And I'm like, hey, funny thing, this red ball that I was looking for a long time, it really did just straight up roll out of the hallway all by itself. And it just parked itself. I'm talking to my friend and I'm explaining, I'm pretty sure it was Kelsey, my friend Kelsey. And I was explaining to her what was going on. And she goes, oh, well, I don't know. Well, now you got your ball back. She's one of them. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And she's like, well, I got to go. I got to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I'll talk to you later. I hang up the phone and I'm just staring at the ball. And I'm like, okay, whatever. All of a sudden, the ball takes off. And it doesn't like take off like something kicked it down the stairs, which are carpeted, mind you. It came off the ground, the carpet, the first steps here, okay? It comes up off of that and bounces. And no ball, I don't care how talented you are, is on its own going to hit every single step on the way down and bounce 3+ feet higher every time. It was legit like a high school basketball player, you know, handling the ball and bounce, 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 bounce all the way down the steps. Well, you get to the bottom of the steps and it's just my parents' basement is just open on both sides. Like when you're ascending down into the basement, it's just open on both sides. You get down to the bottom, there's like a square carpeted area. You step off onto either side, whichever side of the basement you want to go on. Well, when you get down to the bottom, on the left side was a bed. It was like an extra sleeping area down there. It was covered in my mom's Christmas ornaments. Everything, because she was cleaning out the cabinets. It was September. She was cleaning everything out down there, covered the bed in Christmas ornaments. So the ball bounces and I see it until, you know, it's going further down and I don't see it anymore, but I still hear it.
Right.
And I hear it bouncing and it gets to the bottom step and stops, not like a bounce, 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 bounce.
Yeah.
It just straight up bounce, 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 no bounce.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. You know, and at this point in my life, I had never experienced anything outside of what I did with my grandma as a little girl. And that never made me uncomfortable in the slightest. This made me very uncomfortable. And then and the ball gets down to the bottom of the steps and I'm like, that's fine. You can stay down there. Yeah. And I'm not going down there for laundry, for nothing. I'm not going down there for nothing. Like I'm not going down there. And that's how I felt. And that was my home, you know? I mean, I was always kind of scared of the basement, but not for any reason, just because I didn't like basements. And this one was an old concrete wall, concrete floor, no ceiling type basement. It was creepy.
Just an unfinished basement.
Right. And it gets to the bottom of the steps and I'm sitting there and I'm on the phone again trying to call someone to talk to me. Like, just talk to me for a minute right now, please. And then I'm sitting there, nobody's answering the phone. I'm standing by the sliding glass door. Like I had gotten away off the couch, away from the staircase. And I'm standing by the sliding glass door looking out into the sunshine. And then I hear what sounded like garble. Like it really did. I couldn't tell you then or today what was said. Couldn't understand it. But it was a man, and it was an angry man, and it was garble. Like it wasn't loud. It wasn't a scream, but it was enough of what it was for me to know at that age of 13, 14 years old that whatever was said was not nice. It was very angry. It was forceful. It was that. I heard whatever that garble was of just that. And then that ball takes off with full force. And all I hear is breaking glass and the ball bouncing from floor to ceiling boards and just running. That ball was just running amok. And I was so scared. I took the phone. It was just a home phone. Didn't have a cell phone then. I took the home phone and I ran out into the yard. My parents didn't get home until probably like 5:30, 6 o'clock. I stayed out in that yard until my mom and dad got home. And as soon as one of them pulled up in the driveway, I was like, oh my gosh, please, somebody go downstairs. Like, this is what happened. Dad, I'm not kidding. I'm crying. I was scared to death. Thank God you're here. Now go see what happened. And still to this day, my mom and dad then, and my mom still today, believes that I was in the basement screwing around and broke all of her junk. And I never went down there. To this day, I promise on everything I own, everything I love, I never went down in that basement. And when my dad went down there and saw all that stuff broken, that rubber, flimsy, red ball was right smack in the middle of every single one of those shards of glass, broken ceramics, light ornaments, like just everything. Just right in the middle of it on that bed, everything was busted. Not one thing came out unscathed, and that ball was not popped. And my mom, she wanted to beat me half to death because that was everything. Family heirlooms, Christmas, everything. Right. Everything. All of our stuff when we were little kids, like all of it. every bit of it shattered. There was stuff down there that like was homemade glue rock that we stuck a little pendant in when we were kids and brought it home for our first Christmas or something like that. It was shattered, like cracked completely in two. My mom was furious. I'm scared to death. Like, I did not want to be in that house anymore. I was absolutely scared to death. I wanted no part of it. And I said, Dad, you can believe whatever you want. I said, and I don't care about the ball. I don't care about the ornaments. I said, but what about that noise I heard? What about that voice I heard that came from our basement that was not nice? What about that? And then after that night, it wasn't every day, and I couldn't pinpoint a time on it. But after that night, I would be laying in my room, which just so happened to be directly above where all that stuff happened, where the ball busted everything. And I would hear, like coming out of my vent, I would hear a little girl. I would hear a little girl like running around, like frolicking, you know, whatever. I could never understand it, but I wasn't an idiot. Like you could tell it was a little girl. And then every now and again, I could catch like a voice of like a woman, like a comforting, like a very calm type. It's hard to explain, but it didn't scare me when I heard the little girl and I heard like, you know, little giggles, or I heard like humming from the woman or something along those lines. And then and I would be fine. And then there would be times when I'd wake up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would be in my bed out of a dead sleep, scared to death. I mean, just scared to death for no reason. Nothing happened, no noise, no nothing, just wake up scared to death. And I would hear every night that I would wake up like that, I would hear that same garble from that noise, that man voice, whatever it was. I would hear that, and I never heard them together. Like I would hear the woman and the girl close to the same time, but I would never hear them and the man. It was like when the man was there, like I would wake up like that at 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I would lay in bed at, 14, 15 years old, scared to death. And as soon as my mom and dad's alarm would go off at 6:30, whatever in the morning, I would be the one bolting up out of bed, turning all the lights on in the house, starting the coffee pot, going into my parents' bedroom. Like I would do that because I had been laying there for 3+ hours, scared to death, like in fear for my life, feeling like from hearing that garble.
That is creepy.
And I've never, even to this day, I do not feel comfortable in my parents' basement. I don't like being down there alone. If I am ever down there alone, as soon as I have to shut that light off, and I get yelled at still today because I won't shut the light off. I'll come upstairs with the light on. But if I ever shut that light off, I have to be on that top base, and I have to shut the light off, and I mean, book it like nobody's business. I mean, not miss steps, not on purpose to get back up that basement.
Like I said, we've been pretty comfortable down there a few times.
That's because I'm down there by myself. I'm okay if I'm not down there by myself. I feel like I'm protected no matter who's down there with me. But if I'm down there by myself, like I want no part of the left side of that basement. Like I can be on the right side in the living room area. I can be on the right side further back where the big laundry room's at. Like I'm okay with that. But the left side of the basement, I am not okay with. Something on that side, and it may just be me. I don't know, but even like my mom still lives there. She watches my children there. I mean, the upstairs is fine, the outside is fine, everything's fine. My kids go in the basement, not much because there's not much down there, but they're fine. Mom's never felt anything, but I know what I experienced. I know what I heard. I know what happened, and I don't care if anybody does or does not believe me. I know that I didn't break a single mother trucking ornament. And I know that I wasn't down there yelling at myself.
We don't use we don't use mother trucking on this podcast.
I don't. No.
You better speak in correct vernacular.
I tell you, here's a little interesting thing. You were talking about 9/11. 9/11, by far the biggest tragedy
on soil,
on U.S. soil. But this, all metalheads will know. Okay, I absolutely love the band Slayer. They're my favorite band. One of their albums came out that day. That morning it was released. Interesting thing about that, the title of the album, God Hates Us All. came out the morning of 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Leave it to Slayer.
No, Slayer had nothing to do with it. It's just really odd that album
crazy.
would release that morning that happened.
No, I don't at all believe that, the occurrences of that day, as far as our country is concerned, had anything to do with what happened to me at home. I think they are worlds apart. They have nothing in common with each other. I don't know exactly why it was that specific day. I mean, really, it was a random occasion where I went home without my sister.
Right.
And I went home and I was on the phone. And I wasn't that kid. I never got home and got straight on the phone. I never got home and turned the TV on. Like, I went outside. I was doing stuff. Like, I wasn't one of those electronic head kids. And this was back in what? Oh my God.
I'm going to say probably 2001.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Damn.
Shut up. Anyway, I mean, back then it wasn't.
Wow, Ryan, way to be a dick.
Yeah. It was the story of my life.
I try.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was that day, but I mean, I'm not kidding. I looked everywhere on our property for that red ball. How is it going to just roll up out of a hallway?
All I hear is complaining about you looking for this red ball, and then when you find it,
I wanted no part of it. It could have gone back where it came from. I wanted absolutely no part of it. That red ball had picked up something along the way, and we were no longer buddies.
So actually, this is a good story because you've been looking and looking and looking.
Now you found it.
I guess moral of that
Happy
story
ending.
is be careful what you ask for.
It is a happy ending.
Happy ending. You found the ball. Happy ending.
Yeah.
It was like doomed.
You want happy
Everyone
ending?
was mad that I couldn't find the ball. And then after the ball was found, I got threatened for a few days in a row by my mother.
Oh, man. Okay.
It was not good.
That is not good.
Well.
But speaking of ending, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of this.
Yeah.
We've talked about all kinds of stuff tonight.
I'm sure we're going to be probably getting into. To be honest with you, we'll probably have multiple podcasts about paranormal. That's what's going to happen because we love it, and there's bound to be more things that happen, more people that might want to talk. So I mean, but for now, I think. And
tell us your stories.
Yeah.
Like we would like as much as we like to hear our stuff. Why don't you call us and call us or get on the post? Tell us your stories. I like to hear.
You taking over our show?
I like freaky stuff.
She could.
I'm not scared of the freaking normal.
You're taking taking my stuff.
Well, you can have it back.
From now on, you can't talk no more.
I just silent.
No, we want to thank Krista for coming in and telling us her stories.
Yeah, it was fun.
Great job. It was really fun to have somebody else here other than Ryan's ugly mug for me to stand.
Yes. But it'll be all right. But anyway, hit us up on Facebook, guys, the Horror Chronicles podcast. Kind of start a conversation, whatever you want to do on there, and then hit us up on our email,
which is the Horror Chronicles podcast at gmail.com.
Give us some of your stories. If you want us to talk, tell them we will. As always, if you want, we'll do that. And if you're near us, we can probably get you on here.
Or hell, you could just call Ryan at 555. No, never mind.
1-800-GO yourself. No. Anyway, all right, guys, we got to end this. It's getting slap happy in here. We love you guys. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Keep it creepy.